And so it's my honor to be doing this fireside with you. And I think we only have 15 minutes, but I don't think we'll even get nearly into the questions I have for you. So let's start at the beginning. Go back to 2010, 2009. You had been an accountant for about 20 years. You had served the tech industry, but then you made the switch to become fully involved with the tech community. So what was the tech community like in Canada in 2010?
Sure. Thank you very much, Alex. And first of all, I got to say, I can't believe the number of people that are out here. This would not happen in 2010. There would be 2 tables in front of me, and if you didn't pay for the food for the 2 tables, they wouldn't have 2 tables filled. So this is pretty incredible. And then number 2, it is a pleasure to be here. It's frankly a pleasure to be anywhere at this point, given my accident that occurred. It's almost a year ago today, but nothing would keep me away from the tech community in Toronto. It is the greatest community I've ever seen. And it's fascinating, Alex. So prior to me coming into the venture world, it was a disaster in that you had these great entrepreneurs that had seedlings of ideas, but there was virtually no venture capital available in Canada. And the interesting thing was I was able to convince a pension fund to place a bet really on the kids. And the bet really was this was going to be the future of Canada. And when I look now, like, it is the future, and the future is now. And I actually can't believe the progress that has been made. And this is the fastest growing industry in this country, and it is going to be the reason why this country will continue to enjoy, the values and the things that we frankly take for granted.
So in 2010, there was a lack of venture capital, and you started OMERS Ventures. What was the thesis, and what did you see as an opportunity back then?
Well, the story was really a negative story from the perspective as before that I was at OMERS, I was a partner at Deloitte, and selfishly, my clients started to disappear. And I spent a lot of time with the federal government trying to figure out how we could reverse this trend of no venture capital. And my number one target was the pension funds, in that they did nothing for this country. So I started heavily criticizing the pension funds, and the CEO at the time used to work with me many years prior, and he called me up for some help in wanting to allocate capital to technology startups, and I was absolutely stunned. And I basically said, well, why do you want me to do this? And he basically said, you've been a fucking asshole coming after us all the time, and if you think you're so smart, why don't you do it? And my response to him was, I'm only a consultant. I consult, I don't do. And that's how it really all started, by an accident. And I would say I was terrified to come over. And at the time, I did discover that the CEO, and his name is Michael Nobrega, was the only guy in all of OMERS who had believed on it. And one of the things that I did do, and I didn't tell Michael until later, I had an agreement with Deloitte that if I hated it, got fired, I can go right back to Deloitte as if nothing had ever happened. So that is the real story on the risk mitigation part of placing that bet.
I love that story. I think founders are good at risk mitigation. Let's talk about some of the founders you backed early on. So if you look at the early portfolio of OMERS Ventures, you have Shopify, Hopper, Wattpad, lots of household Canadian names now. What were you and your team looking for in the teams you backed? What made a good OMERS Ventures investment?
Well, let me tell you a story. So there's been so many great teams backed, but there is a single thread through all the investments, and it's the same thread that I am applying at my new fund, Maverix. And that's really the passion of the founders solving a problem. And I know you guys have heard the story of Shopify countless times, but the entire deal of Shopify, and you could ask Toby Lutke, was a 30-minute coffee meeting that ended up being 2.5-hour coffee meeting. And Toby spoke about his passion of why he so believes in the artisan. And the artisan, it was unfair and a crime that the artisan couldn't sell their wares on the internet very, very easily. And he wanted to be that problem solver. If you ask Toby that very question today, it hasn't changed. And he expressed it in 2.5 hours so thoroughly that we never talked about Shopify at all. And after we basically architected the deal, kind of went back to the team and said, oh guys, can you actually look at the details of this company? I have no idea, but we got to back this founder. Every story is the same. So the fact that, I see so many founders out here, it really is that passion. Don't chase the money, don't chase the glory or the fame, because it is a huge grind, but chase that problem, because it will get you around every obstacle that comes at you. You'll be able to get around it.
So talking about not chasing the money, you are leading OMERS Ventures, but you also went to build the ecosystem many different ways. You started the Canadian Council of Innovators, you backed 111. What were you thinking, and why was that important to the ecosystem?
Well, let me give you the 111 story, and it's frankly similar to the TechTO story. Who would have thought that, right in the middle of COVID, you would get 350 people wanting to be together? And these are technology folks who know how to work remotely, no problem, yet you really want that human interaction. And this was the point of 111, and again, I made a huge mistake. My friend at the time was running Google Canada, Chris O'Neill, and he was in a building at 111 Richmond, and we were good friends, and he said, hey, why don't you move your OMERS Ventures team right next to Google, and we'll just work together every day. And I thought that was really cool. So, but I had a week to decide on this lease arrangement. And so I entered into a lease for OMERS Ventures thinking that that's where our team will go. And I discovered that that wasn't possible. And then I thought, oh, we know what we'll do. Every portfolio company we invest in, provide a space in downtown Toronto for them. And we realized, oh, geez, that didn't really work very well either. And then we just said, I wonder if people in the technology community actually want to physically get together and share ideas and mentor each other, as opposed to getting a bunch of advisors who don't know your business trying to tell you what to do. And that's how 111 was born. And it was really predicated on the serendipitous collision of people and ideas. And the thing that I love so much about the technology community, and you see it on the Facebook pages or what have you, is the amount of sharing that goes on. This does not happen in any other industry in this country, only the technology industry. So it is this co-opetition that is amazing. When people raise money or have an exit, the amount of cheering that goes on, it's unbelievable. But that's why I really believe in community, and like TechTO, this is really a community that you've built.
And how about the Canadian Innovation Canadian Innovation Council of Innovation, CIC,
Yes.
and talk about also government role in innovation.
Yes, this was really triggered by Jim Balsillie. Jim's been a longtime friend, and he was on the advisory board of OMERS Ventures. And Jim did a speech at one of our CEO roundtables, and one of the things that he had said, and this was really comparing to the Americans, when you compete with an American company, and I would say particularly a larger one, you might think that you're actually competing against that company, but you're actually competing against the US government. Why is that? The lobby efforts in the United States are so powerful that anything that you see and read, whether it's treaties, whether it's international trade agreements, tax legislation, you named it, is shaped by the industry that it's intended to support. And in Canada, we like to play like Boy Scouts. No, we can't do that. We gotta play with free and open commerce. It doesn't exist, it's not true. In the United States, they believe in freedom of business as long as you do that, but they'll wire it themselves really through lobbying efforts, and they do it masterfully. We do not have that in Canada, and CCI was really born out of the need to get a collection of technology companies who cannot afford lobbying efforts on their own to pool together on like causes, so we have a shot as a Canadian nation to compete effectively and allow companies to scale globally.
So I love how CCI is there to help us be more competitive. Okay, that's better. I love how the CCI is here to help us be more competitive. If you fast forward today, looking 10 years from when you founded OMERS Ventures, we now have a lot of great founders, a lot of great companies in this ecosystem, and you now have a lot more American capital coming up here. So is that good? Is that bad? What does that mean for the different stakeholders in the ecosystem?
Yeah, I would start off by saying all capital is great. So there's no, and capital doesn't see borders, and you as a founder, if you don't see the capital here, you must go and find that capital no matter where they are in the world. But that doesn't really help Canada, because at the end of the day, if all of the capital is coming from foreign sources, what does happen is two things. There tends to be a migration of the mind and management of the business located in the same jurisdiction where the capital is. Number two, when there is a disposition and a sale of that business, it benefits the foreigners who hold that capital. And the problem with that is that you don't have this reinvesting back into the ecosystem. And so having domestic sources of capital is absolutely critical. And in Canada, we have more sources now than we've ever had in my entire 30-plus year career, and it's fantastic. However, the problem, as I saw it, and the reason why Maverix was born, was when you really wanted to hit a company with a tremendous amount of capital, it was really only foreign sources that could do it. And if we want to keep companies here in Canada, we need to have large domestic sources. So when you look at a Shopify as an example, while we all marvel at it in terms of its success, you know, the real success is the economic multiplier of all the wealthy young people who all bought houses, who all started families, consuming more, etc. That's the real value. And again, I go back to the story of Toby. Here's a German immigrant who basically said, I want to keep my company here and build it here. You can get employees all around the world, but it will remain here. And it is the greatest economic impact since BlackBerry. Well, let's try to multiply that multiple times, and that will mean the capital needs to be here.
Hello? Okay. Sorry about the audio. So I love how you first start with OMERS Ventures, now you got Maverix, so you've slowly created Canadian capital for the whole ecosystem. Starting Maverix wasn't an easy journey. You had COVID, you had the accident. So what new perspective or learning do you have over the last 2 years while getting Maverix up and running?
Well, I discovered I'm a glutton for punishment, number one. I go back to what I had said earlier, and I felt a little bit of a fraud where I'd be investing in founders that were very passionate and really wanted to solve the problem. And, for me, I did run into a number of obstacles in raising this fund. And when I was run over while I was cycling, that of course was a huge obstacle. And one of the first things that I had done, other than thinking of my wife who's here today, supporting me here, and my children, but beyond that, I didn't finish with the problem that I was trying to solve back in 2010. And it was a 3-phase problem, and this was the 3rd phase. And the great thing that I had was, thank God, I had already built a team, many of which are around the table here. And while I was recovering in hospital, nothing stopped. And it was rather amazing. And in fact, I think the team grew through that because it sort of gelled together. And, the thing that I really did realize is, yes, I don't have use of my legs, but that's it. And, I didn't pay attention as much as I should have to folks that had that same disadvantage. And frankly, I call bullshit on it. Like, I'm not running around. I can roll around as good as Jason can on his, and the thing that I found absolutely fantastic is no one cares, and they just care about what you have to offer, your brain power, etc. And so it's really taught me a massive lesson of not only resiliency, but rather stick to the problem that you're trying to solve. When adversity strikes, don't stop. Keep on going, keep on working hard, and you're alive, and life is good. And so that's how I feel like right now. And if you didn't think that I'd still be filled with piss and vinegar, just ask the team. And nothing has stopped. And I would say that to you all here. When I'm going to be coming to a whole bunch of you to give you $100 million or whatever check you need, I expect you to be filled with piss and vinegar, and you're going to have the shittiest of days. And the only thing I'd remember, you will never have a shittier day than I had a year ago, and it's nothing really in the whole scheme of things. So, congrats to all of you out here.